to keep right.
Hey everyone, welcome to Prepare to Go There, the most overlooked and underrated coaching conversation on the internet. That's my opinion, but I'm just convinced that our future deserves our focus today. I really appreciate you investing this time, putting it into yourself and into the future. That's an investment that will have big ROIs rippling out. My name is Peter, and it's been a joy to go on this extended coaching journey with so many friends and leaders alike that all want to lead themselves and stay focused on their future. And that's why we are putting in the work. We're doing the necessary unnoticed preparation today because we just believe there are going to be opportunities and obstacles in the future that require us to show up ready. We're not going to have time to figure out how to do some of these basic practicals. We want to put in the work today so when we show up ready. And it's just been a joy to go on this journey with y'all. That's why I want to welcome you back to the Future Frontier. I want to ask you a question. Are you keeping the future on the front burner? It can easily drift to the back. And we want to have a hopeful, hope-filled perspective because we know that inspires people and helps us lead ourselves. The big idea behind Prepare to Go There is self-leadership. Here's what I mean. I've learned from experience and observation that most people don't know how to lead others into a better future because they don't know how to lead themselves there first. And so that's why self-leadership matters. And that's why we are pulling together just to have this conversation again and again, to add fuel to our focus, to stay motivated, and to go on that journey, that extended journey of putting in the work, growing our values, our worldview, working it out at home, working it out with our teams, with our goals and our big projects, dreaming bigger and having fun, enjoying the journey all the while. So Prepare to Go There is that call to action to help each of us and all of us focus practically on the future so that we can lead ourselves there tactically day by day. We talk a lot about self-leadership and productivity, but we also talk about mindset and worldview and the importance of having healthy relationships, and it kind of goes in a variety of areas. But I wanted to dedicate this space to the personal and even the private side of leadership, which obviously doesn't get a lot of attention. A lot of people are more excited about the public side of leadership, scaling and automating and expanding and just being an awesome person in public. But does that really translate to who you really are? And I heard this quote: I want the people who know me the best to respect me the most. And if we're not careful, that will be easier said than done. And so we have to really walk in humility so that way we're living and leading ourselves with intentionality and integrity. So this week has been really fun. Kicked it off with a new idea. How do you examine yourself without imploding? Because we're all working on ourselves, and from time to time we'll bust out the journal or we'll do some sort of debrief, and it's very good. It can be very helpful and effective, but it can also lead us into some murky waters, and we'll go into this undertow, this undercurrent, where that introspective process kind of gets out of hand. It gets out of control, and we start to lose our focus. We kind of go into areas that are just really unproductive, unhealthy, unhelpful, and we just start getting stuck in our head instead of finding the next step to take action on. And so that was before, but I want to continue it um by installing this next part of the conversation, gathering feedback to examine yourself. Where do you even find help to go through this self-examination process? And so I don't have too many slides today, which I think will be fine, but I do have some thoughts that I want to pass on, and hopefully we can all put this into practice. But I said yesterday that examining yourself is really a form of leading yourself. Maybe we don't think of reflection or self examination as a best practice for leadership, but it really is. And it's more than just mindset, it's more than just having a growth mindset or an abundance mindset. It really is about doing the the work on your own story, on your own character development. And I like to refer to it as giving an audit on your authenticity. Because if you knew who you were created to be, meant to be, you wouldn't want to be anybody else. And yet, so many times we have just accepted beliefs and influences that were not native to our original design, and then they kind of show up in some really weird and wonky ways. So um, it's so important that we are doing our own thinking, that we are learning how to think freely and deeply about things, starting with ourselves. And so that's why I think self-examination is a best practice for self-leadership. And I want to just kind of start with what's at stake here, because if we can't examine ourselves effectively, we'll either default on one of two ditches. Either we'll be making poor decisions repeatedly, or we're going to rely too much on other people's opinion or opinions of us. So neither are really good, right? You don't want either end of the spectrum or either ditch on the road. So the ability to do self examination will empower you. It's a best practice for people who want to lead themselves effectively through multiple seasons of life. And you have to realize, to use the adage, I think a guy named Marshall Goldsmith started it, but he said, what got you here won't get you there. And so this idea of coming back and doing these checkups is really helpful. And kind of the big idea with examining yourself in a way that is helpful and healthy kind of leans to this idea that you can do this is a powerful tool. It's a powerful strategy. It's a powerful experience, to go through this process. And you can do it in good ways, or you can do it in bad ways. You can do self-examination, and it can be very productive, very constructive, very life-giving even. Or you can go through self-examination and do it the wrong way and approach it in a way that is counterproductive, that is unhealthy, that is harmful, that wastes time and drains your confidence. And it's because we kind of have these myths about why we're doing this to begin with. it may be a helpful example, maybe not, but this is kind of what resonates with me right now is, it's like you're a rock climber and you just have this crazy idea you're going to take on the hardest climb you've ever done in your life. You're not going to have any practice and you're not going to tell anybody when you're going. Oh yeah, and you saw, that guy free soloing and you thought you could do it too. And so off you go with no support system, no communication, and you're just going to go wing it. You're just going to go for it. I don't know. I think that's just risking too much. And I don't see any benefit in going through that in so much isolation. And so many people think that that is how they're going to, find themselves. They think they just have to go on this soul searching trek and they just have to isolate themselves from everything and everyone. And then whoever they really are is going to emerge or surface. And I think that there might be some, just some foolishness, to be blunt, involved in that. And it's not, examining yourself is different than just knowing yourself or discovering who you are. It's really about making sure that the person you want to be, is who you really are, and making sure that you are living congruently in light of the truth, the truth about you. And so many times we just swallow all of these assumptions and we digest them into our identity, and we don't even realize that those things were not native to our original design to begin with. And so there are healthy ways we can do self-examination. There are unhealthy ways we can do self-examination. Generally, if something is going to send you on this endless, black hole vortex, you're just kind of being introspective, questions on questions on questions, and you never really find this resolution. It's just kind of withering you away. We'll kind of talk through that path. But instead, when you examine yourself, you're going through a process of empowerment, and you're taking responsibility in ways that are productive, and you're growing. You're going through these steps, but you're also growing through these steps. Give me just a second. I want to make sure that I can stay on. And so I'll give another example here. Working out is good. I think we all have the general premise that physical training is a good thing, but you can work out in a way that is right, or you can have bad form, bad posture, bad techniques when you're working out, and that could actually mess you up in the process. So if you work out with good form, you'll begin to experience great results consistently. But if you work out with bad form, then you're putting yourself at risk of some unwanted and even unnecessary harm. Examining yourself is a powerful tool, and it can be used constructively or destructively depending on how you handle it. Let me just say on the outset that we should and we can be developing our thinking. It's so important that we are growing our own worldview, that we are, not just learning what to think, but we're learning how to think as well. And we need to learn and practice self-examination, because I'm convinced it's practically a superpower. If you want to level up exponentially, consistently, then self-examination is going to help you. And we shouldn't be afraid of going on that journey of self-examination. We shouldn't be afraid of what's going to happen to us. We should embrace that challenge with courage, We should face those fears head on and work to get resolution, not just, getting lost in that pursuit. And so this is, maybe overall a mindset conversation. It's a mindset strategy. I believe it'll aid us to level up, but most people only learn what to think. They're getting indoctrination in the form of education instead of being given tools to think deeply and freely and, openly, and then even collaboratively. And, if we're going to be leaders that are in touch and in sync with a very large, global conversation, we're going to have to learn how to navigate the nuances of all of these cultural conversations, and to be empathetic, and also to be um, just secure, and mature about the way we handle them. And what's so funny is that a lot of these conversations, they don't happen out in the open at first. It's us going on these journeys as we're reading, researching, listening to podcasting, kind of being exposed and even influenced by what's going on in the public, online, and all these different forums. We're taking in these conversations, and we're processing them on our own, and then we're stepping forward with hopefully some value to contribute as well. And so self-examination is the process of examining yourself. The same way you would go through college and you take an exam, generally it's a question-based experience. And it's trying to see if you've retained a lesson, or if you've gotten the goods, or if you've formed in your own personal development to some degree. So we're asking questions to ourselves, we're asking questions of ourselves, and that's super helpful if it's designed to keep us growing, not shrinking back. And definitely looking inward will show you a lot, but this might be a bit deviant from what you've heard or where you're coming from. It's my understanding that it's not the ultimate source of everything we're looking for. That you can go further and further down into yourself and not really find what you're looking for. It's so important to grow in self-awareness, and to do this self-examination, but you really can kind of lose yourself if you're trying to find yourself and hang on to yourself and make yourself in your own image. I don't think that that's going to be the end all be all. So why would we look inward to begin with? I think one of the reasons that we can look inward is to focus on things that are in our control. We talked about that before. There are things out of our control. There are things that are in our control. If we waste time just dwelling on the things out of our control, we're not taking action. We're not experiencing change that brings growth. We're not taking steps forward. But when we can focus on the things that are in our control, we can feel more empowered. We can become more helpful. We're not waiting for a feeling. We're not, trying to feel better before we do some basic things like, hygiene, exercise, get a good plan for your day, go connect, communicate with some friends. Those are just the steps that get us going, keep us going. And so many times you just need to look at yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror, and that can be enough in many, many cases, uh, just to keep pushing. Absolutely. I think Sarah Joy brought up a great point as well. That's my wife. And she said you have to know how to get out of a rut. So there are some huge benefits to doing this. Now, I want to give an example because, I'm sure most of us have seen the Marvel movies, and Ant-Man is a good example of all this. Ant-Man has the ability to go into the quantum realm, right? And it's basically he's shrinking. And the more he's shrinking, the further and the deeper he's going into the quantum realm. And apparently this is like some, alternate universe, multiverse, whatever. And the further down they go, the more they find down there. And the subconscious is like that. The danger of a counterproductive or kind of a pseudo version of self-examination is going on this path, becoming self-absorbed. And then that leads to self-absolved, and then eventually self-dissolved. Self-absorbed, self-absolved, and then self-dissolved. Now, maybe you can't hear what I'm saying over my accent, but let me try to go through these 3 steps. And I'm not claiming to be an expert in this space. I'm going to actually bring a friend who is very, very knowledgeable and well trained in a lot of this field. I'm super looking forward to that on Friday. Make sure that you're tuning in for Future Friday, because that's going to be an amazing conversation. But I'm here just to kind of give layman's terms, okay? I'm here just to kind of make it easy and accessible, and to invite people, to really lead themselves. And one of the ways you do that is by learning how to think deeply and openly, particularly about you, about how you're doing, and what's important and what's possible, and how you're going to take action, and not just be dragged around. And so the first step in this kind of dangerous path of doing self-examination the wrong way is, number one, you just become self-absorbed. You can read into things too much. You can make everything about you. And because you're the biggest thing in your view, you think everything is related to you, everything is connected to you, everything is about you, everything is attacking you or benefiting you. And maybe there are just some assumptions that they're not real, But whenever you're the biggest thing in this view, you can become self-absorbed, and you're kind of losing touch with your relationships with other people, and in that healthy, in that way that brings a reciprocal kind of give and take. After that, self-absorbed leads to self-absolved. And eventually, if you go down this path long enough, this introspective thing, you basically adopt more of a victim mentality, and then you kind of take away all the blame, and you kind of shirk off all the blame. And I don't even have the language to go deeply into this yet, but I'm assuring you I'm going to work on this, whether it's in a blog or whether it's in the other live streams, or I'll just kind of wait until we get into that conversation on Friday. But I'm going to try my best to really substantiate what I'm describing here. I'm not asking you just to take my word for it, But I do want to give a little bit of caution because at first you become self-absorbed and you're just kind of in your own world and it's all about you and that's just basically selfish. Maybe it's just immature, but it could get even more drastic than that. And then eventually you just get self-absolved and you can never be wrong. Okay? You can never do any wrong. And it's because you're so self-absorbed and you become kind of the hero in every story from every angle. And so you've just totally removed yourself from any possibility of accountability. And that's not cool. And then lastly is you become self-dissolved. And I might be kind of veering into some other worldview topics here, but this is where if you go down that path of all the questions on questions on questions and you're not growing through that, um, it's weird. I don't even know how to unpack this right now, but you just kind of lose yourself. You really lose yourself in the process, and nothing really matters. And so that's super sad because that's where a lot of people become shipwrecked, and and they just kind of lose touch with reality because they tried to make themselves the point of reference for reality. And so, absolutely, I think it's amazing that we would grow as individuals, that we would grow even in our relationships with others in our environment, that, basically we're learning how to love ourselves and love others, to do that golden rule. But I think the idea of examining yourself, even though it seems close to just, know yourself and be kind of the center of your own universe. Um, the difference here is that, when you examine yourself, that's a real test. It's like real test, you really pass or you really fail. Whereas if you're just kind of doing this more kind of feely, touchy feely, subjective kind of just do whatever feels right, feels good, is good, define your own life. That's more of just like a fill in the blank homework assignment. You just kind of take it home. It's more of a participation grade than a real exam, a real test. And so audit your authenticity, and you want to be living authentically. You want to be living out your authentic story. And my question is like search that out, and do you know how to get the right evidence and the right facts to do that? Living in light of what's true. Are you really living in light of what's true? Are you really living in light of what's true about you? And so many people, they think that they're expressing themselves when really they didn't examine themselves enough to realize that there was a discrepancy, um, at a deeper level. And so that's that for now. I think I've done either a good job or a bad job of trying to make that case. But the question now becomes, how can we get a better and hopefully an unbiased picture of what's really going on? And this is where we're going to lean on other people to help us perceive and process and then produce different things for our life. So I just want to introduce to y'all a very simple framework right now to understand how you can involve other people in your own self-examination. And this is kind of a slippery slope because we feel inadequate about going through this process to begin with. So we really can rely too much on other people, and then we're kind of missing out on the whole point of self-examination. Equally, maybe we can be so confident that we got it all figured out and we know exactly what's what, and we're not taking the immense value that is so readily available in a lot of caring and qualified people around us. And so, um, I appreciate, being here now at the 77 live stream. This is my 77th round, if you can believe it. Almost roughly 77 hours of personalized lifestyle, self-leadership coaching. And so after a while, you're trying to come up with new things to talk about, new things to share. Cause I do think it's helpful to have some repetition, but I kind of want to build the library as well. And so now I'm kind of getting into some areas where it may not be so obvious or, so automatic, but I do want to give some things that are going to be very helpful to you and have been proven to help both in my own life and in a lot of the other conversations I've been able to share. So you have to realize that feedback is so valuable, but you can't misuse it. Feedback will inform you, feedback can influence you, and you have to know when the feedback is meant to inform you, and you have to know when the feedback is meant to influence you. Because if you're using feedback that's only meant to inform you, and it's just helpful to know, but it's not really supposed to be that weighty in your life, you can let go of your own decision making because you're just going with, the authority of the day, whatever that authority structure looks like, and that's where you get into things like group think, because things that were good as just information are becoming an influence on you. And we can kind of tease that out later. But I wrote down 4 things here, and there's kind of 4 levels of feedback, 4 levels of feedback to think about. Number 1, people can give you feedback to help you find out things about yourself, to find out things about yourself. We're going to talk about that in a second. Number 2, people can give you feedback to help you figure out things about yourself. So 1 is they're just helping you find out what's going on. But then at the next level, this level of feedback, people are helping you figure out what's going on. Okay. Then the third level is people can help you forge things about you. This is where they're actually helping you shape your decisions and your thinking and on and on. And then the last one, just, more as a kind of to round it out, I would say, I was just kind of thinking this one out. People can give you feedback to help you forego things about yourself, or in other words, to shed off things about you that are not true or that you've outgrown. So I want to kind of go through these 4 levels, if that's cool. And it might sound a little boring, but just bear with me, because I want you to go through this self-examination process confidently. I want you to, don't be afraid of what's going to happen when you learn things about yourself and when you push yourself to try new things and do hard things and to grow and mature as a person. But what I found is feedback if it's not, if if you don't realize that they're, and I'm using this just as a way to kind of introduce the idea. I'm sure many of you will be listening later on, and you'll think of better ways to kind of fine tune this and better understand it, better explain it. But just take this as an initial framework to get you going, because not all feedback is equal. Okay, not all feedback is the same, and so this is how we can stay teachable without being, for lack of a better phrase, brainwashed or indoctrinated just by anything and everything we hear, because not everything we hear is going to have the same amount of weight in our life. And I get it. It's kind of weird having a kind of a presentation, because I'm already hearing some of the follow up and the pushback. So I just have to kind of plow through this. And I get what you're saying. That doesn't that mean that you're already biased to, not give everybody an equal chance? And I would say, um, you listening is a gift to that person, but you still have a choice. You still have agency. You still have the responsibility to appropriate it. And I'm telling you, not everything you hear is true. And so you have to have discernment how you're going to apply it. All right, so let's just go into this. The first level is when I said people can give you feedback to help you find out things. And this is where people will help you investigate. Let me write this down if I can reach over here. Okay, so feedback is very helpful, because it will help you investigate what's going on, what's really happening. The first level of feedback here is where you're data collecting. You've got to get data. You got to get data about your habits. You got to get data about your thought processes. You've got to get data about your relationships. You got to get the data. Hey, I said this, they thought that. Hey, I did this, and then that happened. It's a very obvious kind of black and white cause and effect relationship. It might even be, root and fruit relationships. And we can do this on our own, but man, it is so valuable to get other people to start bringing in their eyes and ears, and even bringing in their expertise into this process, where they are now observing us, they're observing you, and they're saying, hey, I noticed this, I'm seeing this, did you realize, this data? And they're just bringing observations. And I think we need to be willing, we need to be confident and secure enough to let people bring their observations. And we shouldn't be offended by that. We should be open, and we should encourage honesty about, about this data. Get the data that you need. If you don't have all the data, then you can't make a well-informed decision. And so people will begin to share with you what they observe about you. And that's cool. And you need to welcome it, and you need to let people speak into it. Initiate this. Say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. Can you give me your thoughts? What are you noticing? And just recruiting people to investigate different areas, different aspects of your life, because you may not have all the time to do this. You may not have all the energy to do this. You may not have all the skills yet to do this. And so if you can kind of collaborate with other people, it will force multiply this feedback process. The next area that I want to hit is level 2, right? Which is people giving you feedback to help you figure out things. So it's not just what's happening or what's not happening, because that question is useful in both instances. What is happening or what is not happening? That's level 1. What's really happening? What's not happening? What do you notice? What is missing? That's super important. Hey, what's happening with my communication right now? Oh, I'm noticing that you're making a lot of eye contact, or you're not making enough eye contact. I'm noticing that you kind of sound, a little mellow, or maybe you're pretty fired up. What is happening? What is not happening? Hey, let's talk about finances. Help me understand what is happening, what's not happening. That's all data. That's data, right? Everybody's bringing their observations to the table. That's really good. But that's raw data. It's just raw information. It's not been processed yet. So we're getting all these inputs, but we still have to process them. And so that's where this next level, see if I can do this right, is so important. You need people that can help you interpret, interpret all that data, interpret all that feedback. And there are people that are really trained or trusted, hopefully both, to do that. They are getting all these inputs, they're getting all these observations, they're taking in all of these experiences with you. But now you need help to say, hey, I'm feeling this way, or I'm thinking this way, or I'm processing all this stuff, but I don't know what it means yet. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's something else. Help me interpret what's going on with me. Help me interpreting what's going on with this situation. And this next level of feedback, which I'm broadly referring to as level 2, is diagnostic. This is where you get people to help you diagnose what's going on. They're diagnosing how you're doing, how you're feeling, how you're leading, how you're, performing at work. They're diagnosing it. They're bringing very good insights that can help explain why you're going through certain things. And this is super valuable because if you kind of get shut off to yourself, you can kind of create all of these narratives that really are baseless, and other people could speak into them pretty quickly, pretty concisely, and set your mind at ease, or give you a lot of peace, or giving you a lot of clarity, that can help you just move on. Otherwise, again, if it becomes counterproductive, this self examination, you just start drifting further and further away from relationships, and therefore, um, the reality that pulls us all together, and you're wasting time, in the process. So this requires, at this level, it will require some experience. It will require some expertise. It's great, people tell you what they're noticing, but that doesn't mean they know what it means, or they don't know what's really going on with it. So this is where we can begin to recruit people that have a measure of experience. They have a measure of credibility. They have a measure of authority. They have a measure, really, they have results. They have results in whatever area we're trying to get that feedback from. Whether, I'll just kind of hit some obvious ones, whether it's financial or physical, health related, or emotional, relational, counseling. And a lot of people, they go get professional care. They go reach out to professionals. They do this, counselors, um, ministers, coaches. This is extremely helpful, when people can just kind of lay it out there and say, this is what's happening and this is why it's happening. Man, they begin to interpret things. They clear the air, and you don't have this weird heaviness kind of hanging on you because you just don't know what's happening. I remember personally, a few years ago, I was experiencing some unprecedented stress at that time. And so I was feeling a lot of different symptoms, and I was getting the data. I was, tracking these symptoms, but I didn't have the right interpretation of it. So I was kind of, in the absence of just entertaining some really baseless conclusions. And thankfully, I was able to get in contact with some trained and trustworthy people, and they started speaking into it, and then they started speaking hope into me, and they basically were saying, Peter, chill out. You're going through it, but you're going to get through it. And that was enough. That interpretation alone was enough, to get me through it. But then I needed another round of feedback. So this is really important that we are seeking out people that can help us interpret the inputs, interpret the data, so to speak, that's happening in our life. And so you're going to have to initiate that as well. And I want to say that this is kind of a stair step framework, because some people can make that first step and they'll just tell you, hey, I'm noticing you're not feeling good. I'm noticing you're not yourself. But it takes someone else to actually interpret why, and help you figure out what's going on. And so reaching out, they don't have to be like, they don't all have to be, like having that profession, but they definitely have to be trustworthy, and a lot of times we're recruiting professional caregivers or some sort of leadership because they have a larger field of studies, and they're going to kind of give us a shortcut. They've kind of explored all of these different avenues, so that way they can just make these connections pretty quickly, and we don't have to waste time and do that on our own. But that's the second level of feedback. One is, people are just helping you find out things about what's going on. Hey, I'm noticing this. I observe this. I see this. That's really helpful. I think one good case study for that would be if you're on a team and you're doing that 360 peer review. That's really good. Sometimes they're anonymous, sometimes they're not, just because they're trying to encourage honesty. But regardless, you want to recruit people that are going to help you notice what's going on. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And you want to be open and humble and let people speak into that. Now, just because everybody's going to say what they see, that doesn't mean that they have the right interpretation on, what it is and why it's happening. You need somebody who's got a measure of skill and a measure of expertise, or some sort of credibility there. So then they're going to help you interpret. They're going to help you not just find out what's going on, but they're going to help you figure out why it's going on. And then that next level is feedback where people can help you actually implement. They're going to help you implement change. They're going to help you implement action. They're going to help you implement a plan. They're going to offer you a prescription. They're going to offer you a program. They're going to offer you some sort of, path that you can go on to get a certain kind of result. This is wild right now. Everybody is kind of doing this sort of thing, implementation and coaching and kind of this whole self-learning economy right now. But this is good, and this is definitely a thing. Again, this is where I said people can help you forge things about you. They're helping you develop. Okay, this is the developmental phase of feedback. So I kind of think in alliteration. So I'm going through these 4 levels in about 3 different letters. So I got my F's, I got my D's, and I got my I's. But basically, like I said, level 1 was data, level 2 was diagnostic, and then level 3 is developmental. Well, I also said investigate, interpret, and implement. So, take it however you want. But on level 3, this feedback is really helpful. This is where the observation and the interpretations are applied to you specifically. Okay, so this is very custom. It's personal, and it's designed to help you take action. It's designed to develop you or forge you in a certain way. And so this is where you might see coaching or mentoring. There's an element of relationship that's being started here because it's going to take time to implement. It's going to take time to implement those choices, see those changes. And this is good, but again, this is like another step. And so I feel like every time we're taking a step up in the feedback, we need to be that much more selective, that much more guarded because it's coming with a higher cost, it's coming with more investment, and not everyone will earn the right to bring the kind of feedback that you're going to implement. Not everyone is going to have those kind of solutions or strategies for you. And so you really want to be careful when, I mean, people, hey, I noticed this. Cool. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Hey, I think it's because of this. Okay, I will think about that. I will process that. I think you should do this. Wait a second, you know. And if people have proven those checkpoints, if they've been um, checking off at those different steps, did they help you with the investigation? Yes. Have they helped you with a helpful interpretation? Yes. Okay. Do you trust them to bring in the right implementation? There are going to be different approaches, different strategies. Um, I'm just trying to be helpful, so I'm giving some examples here. But if I'm just kind of all over the place, then please forgive me. But like, let's say you go to the hospital, you bring up your symptoms. Okay, then they bring up their diagnosis, and then they're going to bring kind of this portfolio of paths that you can go on. You'll have to decide: do you want to just do um, all medical or pharmaceutical? Do you want to take pills? Do you want to do natural? Do you want to do surgery? Do you want to do therapy? Do you want to do a combination? And that's where you really need a lot of wisdom. You need a lot of discernment. And so you don't need a lot of discernment at level 1. You don't need a lot of discernment to see something that's in front of you. People, they're going to say what they see. They're going to share what they hear. They're just going to give you feedback on that level. That's cool. Welcome it. But then as you move up that staircase, so to speak, then they began to bring up their interpretations. Just as a funny example, I've had many people come up to me. I'm sure those of you listening, I know the people who are watching and listening, so you can kind of join in and laugh along. But, just because somebody sees something spiritually over you and then they start to give you some sort of word or some sort of instruction to go with it, those are two different things, So I think a big factor in this is, you could say reputation, but you could also say relationship. Do they have the reputation to be trustworthy in that way? But then do you have a relationship with them to trust them? And so that's what we're getting at, is more and more we're building trust as we go through this feedback framework. For the sake of time, because it's almost time. Wow. It's almost time to land the plane here. The last level of feedback is integration. When you're actually integrating all of the feedback that's coming at you, and you're integrating it into your habits, or you're integrating it into your lifestyle. This is I would say, like the deepest or the most weighty kind of feedback. And so this is what we have to really guard and be careful and be mindful of, like, who's speaking into us at this level. And we can't just let everybody speak into us at this level, because it's going to become a part of us. What people say to us, about us, that's what we're going to latch on to. And, I'm so grateful for Jesus. He said, people don't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And so living a life that integrates what God says about you is ultimately going to help you um, assess and apply, you know, your most authentic self. And so this last level of feedback is all about deployment. Deployment. Um, this is when the solution that was given to you, in level 3 feedback, they gave you something to implement. They gave you a plan. They gave you a process. They gave you a program. They gave you steps. They gave you a strategy, whatever. The solution that they give you in level 3 is now going to fit into a larger system of thought, a larger system of beliefs, a larger system. This is where you kind of buy in, so to speak. And this is potentially going to be the most involved form of feedback because it's the feedback that keeps coming back. It's the feedback that keeps creating this cascading effect of communication and direction in your life. I said deployment, but I could also say direction too. So this is super important, that not all feedback is equal. Not all feedback it could be helpful at level 1, but it may not be helpful at level 4, if that makes sense. And so this allows us to be open, to have a premium on the value of being teachable, to keep that beginner's mindset, to continue to grow, but not be suckered in and not become so gullible that we just assume that anyone who's going to offer us feedback is somehow, um, is somehow going to be at level 4 with you. They're not all going to go the distance with you, and that's okay. The last thing I'll mention about level 4 here is it creates a feedback system that you're going to listen to even after that person's gone. That's super important that you realize, man, a lot more could be said about that. But so my question now is someone's advice leading you into containment or empowerment? That's the downstream conversation. A lot of people, self-examination, is it leading you into containment or is it leading you into empowerment? And a lot of people will be quick, to give you advice, to give you help, so to speak. But you want to make sure that you're actually developing in your own maturity. You need discernment, not just the answer. So good. I don't want to just get the answer to what I'm facing. I want to go through the process that's helping me grow in discernment. I don't want to just get a one-hit solution. I want to go further and actually grow in wisdom. And if we're not careful, we'll be sold solutions. We'll be told things that help us, but in the end, they kind of trap us. And I'll give you a simple example. I'm not trying to be facetious with this, but it's kind of like the sales funnel. You go through people, they take you through sales funnels and they say, here, this is free. And then they say, oh, well, this, is next. Oh, but you really need this, but you really need this. And you don't realize that you're in a funnel until you're so deep in it. And I'm not saying that that's inherently bad or good. I'm just saying the feedback has motion to it. Okay. The feedback takes you in a certain direction. And so, just be thinking about it, as you go through self-examination. You want to initiate it, you want to be open to it, but you want to curate it. You want to filter your feedback and you want to grade your feedback. A lot of times people just keep listening to the same opinions, same ideas, and they don't actually assess, how did that go? Did it work? Did it make you, um, better off downstream? So look for long-term results as well, as you're getting this. Let me try to finish with this. The key to examining yourself is that you're learning how to think for yourself as well. The goal is not just to get an A plus on your figurative self-exam, but that you're learning how to make new exams for yourself later on. That you're going to learn how to keep this discernment and this humility to keep yourself in check, even when these people change in their seasons of life. If you stay in the student role, you may never learn one of the most valuable lessons of all, which is that you're going to have to lead yourself sooner or later. The reason we let people inform and influence our lives is because we have healthy relationships with them. Let me say that again. The reason we're going to let people inform and influence our lives is because we have healthy relationships with them. It's because they have fruit in their life, right? They have credible reputations. They've put in the work themselves. That's why, their self leadership is a resume for the feedback they're going to give you. And we want to be growing healthy relationships, not just getting happy results. So another way is to look and see if there are strings attached. Are there strings attached to what's being given to you? So I'll finish with that. I really appreciate y'all kind of listening. This was a little bit more of a kind of a download. Maybe I was just kind of processing something before I had it all articulated. But I really want to encourage you. This is a great time in the year to examine yourself, to assess what were the big goals you set for this year? How are they going? How are you going to pivot moving into 2022? We're in quarter 4 right now. Quarter 4. This is October, quarter 4. So this is the time we should be growing, kind of thinking with gratitude. We should be counting those blessings. We should be collecting our gains. We should really be making not just day-to-day choices, but start thinking for this window of time. This is going to be an important window for us as we're looking into the next year, or even looking in maybe a 3-year view, 5-year view, or further. And you won't have the data you need. You won't have the diagnosis you need. You won't have the development you need, or you won't have the deployment you need. I just thought of that. The reason I said deployment at the end is because someone who's going to give you great feedback wants to empower you. They don't want to contain you. They want to release you to go be awesome, go be great, go be a leader. Freely you receive, freely give. They're not going to try to create some pyramid scheme that keeps you down. The Jesus model is totally different. The self-leadership, servant leadership model, the greatest of all is the servant of all. That's totally different. And so if you're kind of getting feedback or advice that's basically scrutinizing you instead of giving you tools to examine yourself and take responsibility for yourself, then, just watch out for that. Watch out for that and think about that. All right. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about how we can model self-examination as a form of empowerment. A lot of people want to come to us and get advice from us. They will literally do whatever we tell them, and we shouldn't take that at face value. We shouldn't become that. We don't want to be put on a pedestal in their eyes. We have to be walking in humility. We have to be helping them grow in discernment on their own. And so there's a time, when whether it's figuratively, spiritually, or whatever, as a baby, you got to give a lot of care. But as people grow and develop, we need to be making sure that they are hardwired for success, that they're getting those life lessons and those life skills that are going to help them move forward into the future. And making sure that they're really launching well. And so we're going to talk about how to empower people with self-examination, kind of modeling this in front of people. Maybe we'll even kick around some questions that we could pass on, but we'll just I'll kind of be thinking about it today and tomorrow and see what comes up. And then on Friday, it's going to be so good. I'm having a conversation. I think I can say it because they've already confirmed, but Sarah Joy is jumping on, and my friend Lacey Henderson is jumping on, and she has a ton of training and experience in kind of this area. And so she'll be bringing some of her clinician. Is that how you say it? Anyways, I'm gonna butcher it. I need to get a full bio of what she does and how awesome she is. But I've got two very free thinkers that are going to join, prepare to go there and help us work through self-examination. And hopefully by the end of the week, we'll be talking about how to help people get free of cage rage. How do we actually get free of cage rage? Because I have found the people who rage the most are the people who are still in the cage. And so we're going to get people out, get them set free, and help them start taking ownership in some helpful ways. But remember, I'm for you. I don't want to annoy you. I want to bless you and encourage you. You got the goods. Let's keep putting in the work. You don't need everybody's permission or supervision to grow. And so make your hours, make your days count. It really does mean a lot. I've gone a little long today. Forgive me. I'll be working on that. But remember, you're going places, but you're going to have to prepare to go there. So put in the work, and I'll see you tomorrow.